Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Okay, cool. Because this is like last session on Friday, so I was like thinking like maybe everyone would be sleepy or not maybe very powerful or have energy. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that we are good to go. Thank you very much to joining this session. This session will be about Azure Data Factory and deployment challenges. Why I'm talking about this topic? I will let you and show you that later. So let's kick off. My name is Kamil, and I'm Microsoft Data Platform MVP. I'm speaking, blogging. I'm a group manager at Avanade in UK. And I have like over probably or about 20 years of experience in different areas. I started with my background is SQL Server. I was doing some BI in the past, and for the last several years, I'm focusing on Azure. Okay, what we will be talking about today. Sorry, before that, this is my blog. You can find me on my blog. Some blog posts. There's a link also to the YouTube channel. So whatever you can find about Azure Data Factory, its deployments, sometimes DevOps, and in the past the data warehouse as well. So I hope you will find in there. Okay. Those slides will be also available on my GitHub. So this is the link. And the agenda for today's session. So first of all, let's cut a little bit. Okay, that's fine. We should be able to see almost everything. First of all, this session will be about Azure Data Factory, but only about the deployment, so the publishing, okay? So how to do that. The second thing, I will be describing the 2 or maybe 2.5 or 3 methods about how to do that, how to play with that, what kind of challenges we can face, and how this method works, okay? Differences between them, and how Microsoft made our life a little bit easier, like about a year ago. Providing us an NPM module that we could finally automate the full deployment of Azure Data Factory. And also, at the end, or maybe somewhere in the middle, I will start talking about ADF tools. This is the tool that I've created like probably over 2 years ago, and I'm using, and many other people are using it as well successfully. By the way, how many of you knows these ADF tools or Azure Data Factory tools? Few of them, great, fantastic. How many of you are using Microsoft approach to deploy Azure Data Factory from ARM template? Few of them. So what the rest doing? How you deploying this? Yeah, only playing or doing things on developer environment? We'll see. Okay. So let's start with how the things works, how Microsoft suggests to do the things of Azure Data Factory and its deployment. So of course, I assume that you have, from the very beginning, every time when you work with Azure Data Factory, that you set up the Git integration for your Azure Data Factory, and you have a Git in Azure DevOps or maybe in somewhere in GitHub and etc. Yeah. We have, let's say, a main branch, like main or master, and also ADF publish branch. What I'm showing those 2 branches, we'll see in a minute. So then, as a developer, when we're working as a developer on the new feature, we are creating the new branch, okay? And then, if we have this Git integration enabled and configured, we have something which is called dev mode of Azure Data Factory. This is not like a real live mode of the Azure Data Factory, but it's very similar. But it's worth to be aware that it's not the same exactly. Yeah. So if you're working in the Git integration mode, and if you choose the branch, you are using a little bit different instance of Azure Data Factory behind the scenes. Okay, then of course the Git integration allows us to, allows ADF to read and commit the changes of the objects of Azure Data Factory. Yeah? once we're ready to with our feature to publish it to the main or master branch or what the, also it depends on your branching strategy, but let's say in simplify this scenario, then you are creating the pull request. Okay, once someone approve it, then the code will be merged to the main or master branch. Okay, so that's the scenario. By the way, how many of you are using Git integration when you're working with Azure Data Factory? Most of them, or most of you. Great, fantastic, very good. And of course, you can work with master branch as well, checking what you have in Azure Data Factory and commit it and save. The good benefit and working with Git integration is, of course, where every single time when you click save and you change something and click save on the objects, it will automatically be commit to the Git repository. Yeah? And then from the master branch, so this is your collaborative branch. When you're configuring Git integration, you have to select or say which is your collaborative branch. Very often it's a master or main. Yeah. So from that branch only you can publish, and then you can click this magic button publish in UI, and then ARM template will be generated for you. Okay. Okay. So how we then can automate these things? So in Azure DevOps, for example, you can build the CI process, build pipeline. So you can get that ARM templates from our ADF publish branch. So then you can produce the artifact and use this artifact in your CD or release pipeline. Yeah. So, but to do that, you have to also remember that you have to, do some extra action like a pre and post deployments actions, like stop triggers if you have any. I assume you have some, and deploy the whole ARM templates, and then start triggers. In addition to that, you should also remember to create Azure Data Factory if you don't have any. Yeah? So we are talking about the other environments a part of Dev. Okay, so this is the Microsoft approach, and then this will deploy the Azure Data Factory code to your dev, to your test, to your production, whatever environment you have. Okay, so that's the theory. Yeah. The second method is actually very similar, but this time you could use. You don't have to use ADF publish branch, and you don't have to use ARM template. You can actually deploy Azure Data Factory directly from the code, so directly from the Git repo that you configured. Yeah. So to do that, you can, of course, write your own PowerShell script. There's Microsoft PowerShell modules, and etc. So you can use Microsoft PowerShell module to do that, but there's a lot of things that you need to remember about. So I remember that I know that Paul Andrew mentioned about that you need to actually deploy all the things in appropriate order, yeah, because there's a lot of dependencies between objects in Azure Data Factory. So this module, Azure Data Factory tools, and the extension to Azure DevOps as a task actually do all the things for you. So it takes care of the all the dependencies. It will stop and start triggers, and etc. and etc. So actually, you don't have to have this ADF publish branch. You don't have to click this publish button in UI and etc. Yeah, so you can deploy directly from code. What's the pros and cons then? Yeah, so I already described you and show you that there's two methods. Yeah, so what is the cons? What is the pros first? So ARM template deployment is faster because it's incremental. It's like it's native approach. Yeah, it's also each deployment will appear in the resource group. So this is good. If you're using REST API / PowerShell, way to deploy the things, it's slower. Why it's slower? Because in this approach we are deploying every single object one by one. Okay. So to follow the dependencies and etc. etc. So it's a bit slower. So if you have like thousands of objects or 2,000 of objects in your Azure Data Factory, that probably could take about 30 minutes, maybe more, something about that. Okay, What is the cons using ARM templates? What is the biggest disadvantages? First of all, you need to parameterize the elements and expose them in ARM template and the related file. Yeah, this is tricky. I mean, this is not simple. I mean, I know that we can do that. Yeah, but if you saw that file, how you can define those things is it's not very useful. Yeah, it's like it's crazy a little bit. When I first time saw that, it's like wow. And then the other limitation is that in the ARM template you can have only 256 parameters. Yeah, so there's a limitation, and it was the limitation to have only one ADF branch because so ADF publish branch, because from that branch you could deploy only. Yeah. And also, it was only the manual way to publish ADF. What is good using the approach like with PowerShell? Actually, you can parameterize any artifact in Azure Data Factory. You can do the selective deployment if you want, if you expect something like that, if you expect something like that scenario, and it eliminates those the mentioned limitations. Okay, but that was, to be honest with you, before 2021. Okay, what is now? What ability? So there's Microsoft, as I said, provide us this npm library, which I will mention in a bit. So now you can actually automate finally the whole process. Okay, and in that way, also you don't need to use ADF publish. It's still there if you click publish button, but you don't have to use it. Yeah, you can directly get the code from any branch you would like. Yeah, but it's still like there's a like tool npm library, which is not very user friendly, and it's not easy at the beginning. You need to just spend some time and investigate how to set it up. Yeah. And also it requires you to add additional file to your repo, or create it maybe with some PowerShell command. You need to remember about that. Okay, so this is like second part of the second method. Okay, method let's say 2b. Okay, why I don't like this Microsoft approach and why I don't like deploying from ARM template. Let me show you something. So probably you know those links, but if you are new to the Azure Data Factory and if you are thinking like, okay, how to deploy it, how to do those things, you're just starting, searching and what is in the internet, and probably you will very quickly land on those Microsoft pages. Yeah. So continuous integration with delivery in Azure DevOps. In Azure DevOps, but in Azure Data Factory. So how you can do that? 6 minutes of reading. There's some diagrams at the beginning. You need to spend some time on understand it, and best practices. Okay. There's also some unsupported features. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Then you are reading more and more because you are facing some challenges, and you actually find out that there's like upgraded method or upgraded way how to do that, how to make it in a fully automated way. So you will land up on this page. Yeah. Okay. So you are already a little bit confused. Yeah. And then you need to just actually cope with the parameters. Yeah. So cope with all those parameters that are automatically generated if you didn't provide any specific files. So you are just starting thinking, okay, how to make it easier, how to customize that. Yeah. So there's like a very simple syntax you can use, and there's like example of that file. Yeah. Simple. Yeah. So especially if you are starting doing those things. Oh, in addition to that, you need to remember to do the pre and post deployment steps. Yeah. To at least stop triggers and then start them again after the deployment. So there's no simple way here. I mean, Microsoft helps us to providing this PowerShell script. Yeah. So you have this small example here how to do that. Yeah. But not every one of us is like an expert in PowerShells, yeah. So at the beginning, it might be very confusing what I'm doing here, yeah. How to adopt it. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. So how to automate it? So as I said, we can automate it right now with without using the ADF publish branch. So you don't have to click this publish button. You can automate everything in this CI process using the library that I will show you in a minute. Okay. So we are almost ready to go to the demo. But before that, please give us a feedback about this session. It's very important for me, very important for organizers as well. I will share that link at the end of the session, just before slides for the questions. But yeah, just wanted to make sure that I can share that with you. Demo. Are you ready for the demo? Before we jump into the demo, do you recognize what's the game? Any of you? Yeah, River Road. River Right. River Right, yes. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. 8-bit Atari. Okay, cool. So, what do you prefer? Demo with the PowerShell or demo in Azure DevOps? DevOps. Any one for PowerShell? No, exactly. This is what I thought. But there is bad news. I will show you something in PowerShell as well. But you don't have to, be aware of like how to. You don't have to be very well skilled in PowerShell. I will show you very simple tricks and how to understand the simple commands. Okay, because it will be very helpful to understand how actually the extension to Azure DevOps works behind the scenes. Okay. Okay, and also this will helpful to troubleshoot something if you start working with ADF tool. Okay, so the first one will be ARM template deployment. Can you see this? Are you okay? Everyone see this very well or not? Or you want me to zoom it a little bit? Are you fine? Okay. Cool. So let me show you at the beginning the Microsoft approach, yeah, very quickly. So this is the build pipeline I created. And because I'm using the ADF publish here, so I have the ARM template in there. So I'm just publishing this as an artifact, nothing else in this case. Okay, so this is simple. Let's go to the release pipeline. In the release pipeline, because our artifact contains ARM template, in release pipeline this time I have, let me double check if I wanted to, okay. I have two environments. Let me show you first here. So the first step, as I mentioned, you need to remember to create Azure Data Factory if you are deploying for the first time, yeah? So because ARM template and deployment of the ARM template is not doing that, yeah? Then, in the normal and standard way, you are going to deploy the whole Azure Data Factory, the whole ARM template that has been generated and stored in ADF publish branch. Okay, so probably you saw that before if you deploy any other services to Azure. But what is a little bit challenging is this one: how you can override parameters. Yeah. So here, okay, this is the window right now that you can provide all the parameters, but they will be converted to this very long string anyway. Yeah. So this is already not perfect way how to do those things and manage them. Yeah. So I personally I don't like it. And please remember to have this incremental deployment mode. Otherwise, most of the things can be replaced and deployed from the scratch. Okay, so let me show you what I have here. ADF instance deployment, we saw that. As I mentioned before, you need to remember to run the pre-deployment, which will stop your triggers and etc. So this is actually running the pre-post deployment script. Everything is in one script. You just need to you can control which part will be run by one of the parameter, which is here. So for pre-deployment, you are passing the parameter like true here. So this is automatically provided for you by Microsoft and by in this ADF publish branch. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, pre-deployment stuff, then ADF deploy all the objects, as I mentioned you before, and you also need to remember about to deploy the global parameters. Okay, so this is another thing you need to remember to do. And post-deployment, so actually, you know, as you can see already, you need to have at least 5 steps, okay, to do this in the Microsoft way. So it's not perfect, but okay. If you need to do that in that way, we can live with that. Okay, so let's go to the next one. How we can then automate it and not getting the data and not getting the ARM template from the ADF publish, because that forces us to use the publish button in the UI. Okay, so let me show you this. Maybe close this first. Okay, so this is my build pipeline where I actually sorry, this is again ADF publish. Let me double check if I open. Yes, I opened wrong file. So this is what I wanted to open. Okay, so this actually allows us to automate the things. Yeah, so npm package provided by Microsoft, you need to install it. Then if you have some extra steps I have here, I'm doing some tests, what kind of version, and I'm installing the library provided by Microsoft. The library name is like this. So I'm using almost everywhere. I'm using not npm task, which you can do if you prefer. I'm using PowerShell because I like PowerShell and prefer PowerShell. So I'm installing here this library, and then this is the command to run the build. Okay, the build actually validates the whole code and creates everything what you can do, what you can see in the ADF publish. So it's exactly the same actions like if you click the publish button in ADF UI. Okay, it's doing exactly the same. Validate code and generate ARM template. Okay. So as a result, we'll have some ARM template files and some other PowerShell scripts to actually do that allows us, you know, stop, start, triggers, and etc. Sorry, so that was the build. Actually, it validates only the code, and the second one validates an export. Okay, this contains both action. And then, okay, so then you have your code, you have this ARM templates, and you can just wrap up this to the artifact and use it in the release pipeline. So let's go to the release pipeline then, and I will show you that. A similar situation with small difference that now we are getting the code directly from the artifact, not from the ARM ADF publish branch. Yeah. So that's the difference. But all the steps are very similar, yeah? The only main difference is that now you can automate that all those things with this npm library. Okay, so that was the demo number 1. Okay, then ADF tools. So what is the ADF tools actually? So there's 2 things. There's a PowerShell module, which is completely open source and free. You can find it in the PowerShell gallery. And there's Azure DevOps extension. Currently contains 3 tasks. Yeah. So whatever you prefer, you can go with PowerShell, or you can go with Azure DevOps and install that task. those tasks from marketplace. 3 tasks in this extension for Azure DevOps. There's more commands in the PowerShell actually, but those are the most important, let's say. The most important is publish, yeah, because we are looking for the publish deploy Azure Data Factory. So this is the one in the middle. Sorry, not this one. This is the one in the middle. In addition to that, because Microsoft was kind enough to provide us this npm library, but if you don't like to install and set up and configure all those things, this PowerShell module can do those things for you. Just with one task or just with one command in PowerShell, you can just execute it, provide all the few just parameters, and it will do all the things for you, yeah, including creation of the file of the package file that is required, yeah. And also there's an additional task, which is test. It allows you to test your link services after the deployment. So this is believe me or not, but this can save you, and not only you, but also the other teams in your company, a lot of hours, if not days, sometimes. So if you deploy the Azure Data Factory, you can test link services as you can today do, clicking this check connection. It was check connection, verify connection, test connection button in Azure Data Factory. Yeah? So this is the task. This task can do it for you. Okay, so this is what I called ADF tools. Yeah, this is actually the same tool because ADF DevOps task, the extension, has the whole PowerShell module behind the scenes. Okay, so this is actually the same code. More information you can find on this page on my blog. Okay, demo number 2. How to do the deployment with PowerShell. At the beginning, I will show you that the PowerShell, because it will be faster to show you the simplicity of using the tool. But then I will show you the same, like say, parameters in the extension in Azure DevOps. Yeah, and also it saves us time to and allows us to do much more things during this demo. Okay. Okay, first of all, how to install. This is simple. Let me maybe make it bigger. How to install? It's very simple. Install module as every single other module. Provide the name, and you can specify if you want to install that for the current customer, or if you would like to maybe automatically, replace the current module if you have installed. Then you have to import this module to the current session, yeah. And you can check what kind of version do you have right now. So my version is the latest, which is 0.96. Okay, let's go. Let's do the first very simple and basic deployment. So those are variables that I'm setting up. Okay, so this is my target resource group. This is my target data factory name. This is location for it. If I need to create the Azure Data Factory, if it doesn't exist. And this is my source folder, okay? Let me show you what we have in there right now. This is like big factory test. This is the folder, okay? As you can see, I have only 3 subfolders, few data sets, few link services, and few pipelines. Very simple. It doesn't matter what is there, yeah? There's like an example IDF that I'm using for testing and etc. So let's deploy it actually, yeah? So first of all, you can run this like in like a what if mode, which actually will not run and deploy anything, but it will show you some basic information, and also will do some extra additional actions, except deploying or changing anything in Azure, okay? So I can very safely run this code, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so as you can see at the beginning, invoking, there's parameters that you provide, and then it's scanning the folder that you provide, reading all the objects, all the file, all the JSON files from there. Okay, so you have full information what is going on. Yeah, and there will be like some replacing some properties, but there's nothing right now. So I didn't provide anything, and at the end you will see the summary. Okay, so this is the simple run without deploying anything. Let's deploy it now. Okay, so let's maybe clean and let's deploy it. Okay, as you can see, it's checking all the dependencies between the objects to deploy them in appropriate order. Yeah, that's it. Deployment finished. 12 seconds. You can see a lot of information in here, what is going on, what happened, if any errors happens, and etc. Yeah, so this is very useful if you are troubleshooting, if you are looking for what happened if something went wrong. Yeah. So this is like very simple thing. Yeah. So if you like to deploy on dev. Okay. So let's do something a bit more complex. So that was 202. Let's use some option parameters to the deployment. Okay, so again, I'm setting some variables, and this is the objects I'm creating to provide some additional options, additional publish options. Okay, so let me create that, and as you can see here, maybe let me show you what kind of option do you have. Of course, you will find all those information in the documentation, but there's much more than all those three that I presented here. Yeah, so those are parameters that you can provide and define. Yeah, in this case, I'm providing only three of them. Okay, create new instance, false. So I'm assuming that I have this install created somewhere earlier. I don't want to create ADF. Delete not in source, true. So this is another feature in this module that you can actually, if you drop some objects in your source, this process at the end can drop them in the target environment as well. Yeah. And you can also define if you want to stop and start triggers. Yeah. This time I don't want to do this. Yeah. So if I define all those parameters, then you just need to provide them to the additional parameter, input parameter to the publish command. Yeah, and that's it. Let's run it. And this time is skipped, stopping and starting triggers, and also it would not create the instance. If the Azure Data Factory would not exist, it will just fail. Yeah. Okay, so that was the deployment with the options. Okay, let's have a look how we can manage the configuration, because if you are deploying and that's the challenge. Yeah, I mean, maybe not like a big challenge, but I would prefer to do things in an easier way if I can. Yeah, so actually here you can provide the configuration for every single environment. Yeah, so if you have dev, that's fine, UAT, production, pre-production, whatever that you can provide separate configuration files and define only those properties for those objects in Azure Data Factory which are different between environments, which would like to replaced, yeah, before the deployment. So how to do that? So let's say my environment will be like UAT. Resource group is the same. This time I'm using this UAT as a suffix to my data factory name, and this is the source of the code. Yeah, okay, let's init those variables. And first way how I can do that. Okay, so this is the stage. I can provide the stage code. Yeah, so in my case it's UAT. So actually this, if you provide something like that, it required the additional file. The file must be in that kind of location. So in your Git repo, you have to have the deployment folder and config file with hyphen, and this is our environment. This is the stage that you are providing in here. Okay, so it's it's expecting this file to be there. Okay, so this is the way how you can do that. Okay, how to create the config file? This is there's a lot of examples in the documentation, but let me show you that very quickly. So let's say that I would like to apply some changes to some objects before I deploy to UAT. Okay, let's have a look how to create this config file. So in my case, this is the big factory sample where I have it. Should be test. Not sure if I added it here. Give me one sec. This is like another folder. Okay, I will show you that on the other example. I have opened it here. This is my config file. Yeah, this is my config file. This is how the config CSV file looks like. Okay, so you have a simple CSV file with 4 columns. Okay, first column is type, which when you're providing type of the objects, then there's a name of this file or objects, and there's a path. Okay, there's a path. Path is here. Okay, so this is the path actually that you can find or in your object. Okay, let's have a look on one of the file. Let's say what we are deploying here with options. Let me close some files. Big factory test. Big factory test. This is incorrect. Yeah. So the path is actually like that. Yeah. So you can define from type properties, then dot, and then, for example, connection string. Then you will be able to replace the whole connection string provided and defined here. Yeah. And the similar way you can provide like type dot properties. This is maybe not. Oh, this is good example actually. This is like getting the data and secret from the Azure Key Vault, but actually it doesn't make sense to change this one. You can actually maybe change the reference name to the linked service Azure Key Vault, yeah. Or maybe even better example would be here, yeah. So if you have defined linked service to the Azure Key Vault, in another environment, you would like to, of course, point to the different Azure Key Vault, yeah. So in that case, you need to provide type properties dot base URL, and then you'll be able to replace that URL for other environment. Okay, does it make sense? Should be, this example should be somewhere here. Okay, but yes, it's here, the second line actually. Yeah, so that's how you can define the path. And then the last column is actually the value that you would like to provide for this environment. Okay, so let's run it here. Was that code? Oh no, this was different code. So let me skip this step and let me show you this one. This will actually return the error, but I will show you why. So it's deploying now. As you can see here, it's already updated 3 properties before we deploying the Azure Data Factory and its objects. Yeah, so you can see all those things when you're running the process. And it's failed because I don't have access to the integration runtime. How to do that? This is another feature that allows you to do the selective deployment. So in this case, I will just very briefly show you how to define what I would like to exclude from this deployment. So in that way, let's mark it that you can define the options and exclude some properties. Exclude some objects. Okay, you can define them directly, or you can define them using the wildcard patterns. Okay, so the pattern is actually like that. So here's the type of the objects, and then there's a name. Okay, so in this example, I would like to exclude all the objects which names ending like ER-Dev 2019. Okay, so that's the option. If we define something like this, let me run this very quickly. This should deploy everything, because now I'm not going to deploy anything related to my integration runtime, which I don't have right now deployed in other Azure Data Factory. Okay. Too hard or not? Or understand this PowerShell act? Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Cool. So this will be deployed, and we don't have too much time, so let me switch back to the slides. Okay, so I'm not going to describe everything, like all the capabilities and options and features in this tool, like what you can find. You will find all the documentation in the GitHub repo, because as I mentioned, it's completely free and open source, and you will see examples how to configure parameters, how to run some code, a lot of examples. Yeah. So this is the list of the options and capabilities that you can have. I'm not going to go through it because we don't have time for it, but I will show you in a minute how to do exactly the same things in Azure DevOps. Yeah, so in the publish Azure Data Factory tool. And as I mentioned, you can selective deployment objects. So whatever it would be, like logically grouped by the folders, or maybe you would like to deploy on the subset of some objects, or maybe only the linked services. Whatever your scenario is, you can do that. Yeah. This is how you can define the list of the objects to be excluded or included in the file if you are working with Azure DevOps and its task. And time for demo number 3. Oops, not here. I have all the links here because I have too many build pipelines and release pipelines. Let me click on this first. So this is like build pipeline with NPM. I think we saw something like that, or very similar. Yeah, you saw that. I already presented that. So how we can use the npm package to build, export ARM template, and etc. Yeah. So then so actually you can see, like, it requires 5 or similar amount of steps. Yeah. Then let's do exactly the same action with ADF tools. One step. You need to just define the action, which is, in this case, if we want to generate ARM template, the action is called validate and export ARM template. And then you will see that behind the scenes is using this npm Microsoft library. Yeah? Let's have a look on this on the log. As you can see, there's like npm here, running the code, adding some files. There's some errors here, but unfortunately, those should be warnings. At the end, it will produce the files anyway. So don't ask. This is like the npm library from Microsoft. So at the end, you will have those files, like post deployment scripts, like ARM template, and etc. Yeah. So it does the stuff. Okay. So this is the build pipeline, how you can do that, how you can automate it, and how you can simplify your life. Deployment from code. If you prefer to deploy from code, then you can also use these ADF tools and the task in Azure DevOps. Okay, let me show you how this looks like. Okay. So this is a build. Actually, I'm doing here 2 actions. And also, it doesn't matter if you prefer to deploy from ARM template or not, you can do those 2 actions as well. Yeah. So this one is doing some validation, the internal code in Azure in ADF tools, checking some names, some best practices for names, for objects, for names. And checking also if the files exist, if the JSON file is actually appropriately formatted, and etc. Checking also some configuration files and dependencies between the objects. The second one is actually the validate and export ARM template. So this is what actually gives us the ARM template. And because the export also validate the whole code in the Microsoft way, then it's worth to put that in your automated CI process, okay? And then publish artifact, okay? And the last step is actually deploy everything. So our release pipeline. Did I click it? Yeah. So you remember that I was showing you that you have like 5 steps to deploy, stop triggers, and etc. Now you can do actually the same, and everything you can steer and control in with this step. Yeah, so you can provide, you know, what is the target subscription, what is the target resource group, what is the Azure Data Factory that you would like to create or update, then location, of course. So all the parameters that you saw already in PowerShell that I showed you, yeah. And also the stage, or if you prefer and have the different path for your configuration file, you can provide the whole file path here, yeah, whatever you prefer. And then you have the options here, like stop start triggers, delete objects not in source, create new ADF instance, and much more. You can also do the selective deployment with this filtering with these filtering options. So if you like to filter some objects, you can do that, you know, selecting this if you want to provide this as a file, or if you like to provide this inline here, yeah. So you can define if you want to exclude something, you will start with minus or hyphen and define, okay, let's exclude maybe pipelines, yeah. I would like to exclude all the pipelines, which doesn't make sense in this case, but yeah, this is how you can do that, yeah, how you can define those things. And some more complex objects and controls and options that you could reuse. Okay, cool. Okay, I'm not going to show the log and etc. You will see, you know, how detailed the whole log is, and how many information you can see during the deployment. And if you face any issue, you can see how useful this can be if you need to do some troubleshooting. I see that Hubert has some questions from the virtual attendees probably. Yeah, give me 1 minute, okay? I'm almost done and almost finished. So this is, I already showed you how to, a little bit, very briefly, how to create the configuration. So of course you can also provide and pass, you know, the secrets from the Azure DevOps variables, or from the Azure Key Vault if you prefer. But in that case, you need to provide them and pass them as environment variables, yeah. And some other stuff, as you already present you the build task, and yeah, we don't have time to show you this test connection, but this is also very useful. I already mentioned that. And what I would like you to remember from this session as the most important is this slide, yeah. So what kind of you know, approaches you can apply in your company, in your project, yeah. So I already told you that you can, you know, generate ARM template, or you can use the ARM template generated in ADF publish branch, or you can use my tool to generate and deploy directly from code, or you can also use my tool to you know, to validate the code which is sit in master or other branch, yeah, in the build pipeline, yeah. Whatever you prefer, this is the whole roadmap how you can do that, yeah. I hope this will be very helpful for you. I've created that just today. I was like thinking that I'm just missing something here in this session, you know, at the end. It should be like something like summary everything what I was showing during this session. Okay, this is the links. If you like to read and learn more about these approaches and tool. And this is actually the time for questions. 1 minute before.
How far away are you from Synapse?
Oh, very good questions. Thank you very much. Yes. So probably you notice that the Synapse is very, I mean, yes, very similar, I'd say, not the same, to the Azure Data Factory. Yeah, from the integration perspective, you have the pipelines there, triggers, and etc. Unfortunately, it's not exactly the same namespace. There's a different, PowerShell module to deploy those things. And actually, there's a big gap in terms of what Microsoft offers in the PowerShell module to deploy the objects. So I started working on that. You will see in the the last link is to the Azure Synapse tools this time. So it's in preview. There's some things and objects are still not supported, but I'm working slowly on that. Yeah, I'm waiting until Microsoft, fill up all the gaps. Maybe not all. Sorry, not all the gaps. This will never happen. But some of the gaps, the most important gaps, to be able to deploy the object, the additional object that you don't have in Azure Data Factory, like the notebooks, for example. Yeah, like SQL scripts. You can have in Synapse, yeah, for example, that kind of things, yeah. It's almost there. Like probably it will take like another maybe 2 months. I don't know. It will be like partly supported preview version. Any questions, guys, from you? Please. Good question. The question is, if I have, let's say, 10 triggers, but I would like to deploy only 5 of them, yeah, and do I need to stop and start all of them? That's very good questions. No, you don't have to. I don't remember out of my head right now what is the logic, but the logic of stopping and starting trigger is described on my page. Apologize, I'm author of this PowerShell module, but I don't remember that exactly. But you can do that. And also, if you are not satisfied with the logic provided by the module, you can also use this option to, okay, don't stop and start triggers for me. I will do that for myself. Yeah. So similar situation what you have in the Microsoft. Any other questions? Sorry, we have out of the time, but thank you very much for joining my session. I hope it was helpful. And if you have any other question or you would like to discuss about this topic or similar topic, Azure DevOps or Azure Data Factory or Azure DevOps or Synapse, I will be here tonight and I will be tomorrow as well. So thank you very much.